The deep hum of the ship's engines was a comfort to Captain James Reed. It reminded him that the United Earth warship Intrepid was alive and strong, just like its commander. Reed stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back, staring at the vast starfield on the main view screen. "Captain, incoming transmission from Earth Command," announced Communications Officer Tara Jones. Reed nodded. His weathered face showed little emotion, but the crew knew their captain well enough to sense his interest. Throughout the galaxy, Reed was known simply as the Warrior, the commander who had never lost a battle, who had faced down alien armadas with nothing but outdated weapons and pure human grit. "Put it through," Reed ordered. Admiral Wilson's face appeared on the screen. His expression was grim, his gray hair disheveled as if he hadn't slept in days. "Reed, we have a situation. The Crimson Fleet has been spotted near Colony XB-12. We've lost contact with the settlement." Reed's jaw tightened. The Crimson Fleet was a collection of advanced warships led by alien warlords who had already conquered 3 star systems. Their red-hulled vessels left nothing but destruction in their wake. "How many ships?" Reed asked. "Unknown. But this is just a recon mission, Reed. If the Crimson Fleet is there in force, you are to retreat and report back. That's an order." Reed smiled slightly. "Understood, Admiral. Intrepid out." As the transmission ended, Reed turned to his first officer, Commander Mark Taylor. "Set course for XB-12, maximum speed." Taylor raised an eyebrow. "Sir, if the Crimson Fleet is there, then we'll finally get to see what these warlords are made of," Reed finished. XB-12 was a small colony, home to about 5,000 people, mostly farmers and scientists studying the unusual plant life on the planet. As the Intrepid dropped out of hyperspace, the bridge fell silent. Where a thriving colony should have been, there was only smoke and ruins. The once green fields were scorched black. The settlement's buildings had been reduced to rubble. "Scan for life signs," Reed ordered, his voice tight with controlled anger. Science Officer Dr. Lisa Wells shook her head after a moment. "No human life signs detected, Captain, but I'm reading unusual energy signatures across the colony." "On screen," Reed commanded. The view screen zoomed in on the colony. Glowing red patches dotted the landscape, pulsing with an eerie light. "What am I looking at, Doctor?" Reed asked. "Unknown technology, sir. It appears to be testing something. The energy patterns suggest experimental weapons." Reed's fists clenched. "The Crimson Fleet is using our colonies as test sites for new weapons." "Sir," Tara called out, "I'm picking up a transmission. It's weak, but it's coming from the surface." "Put it through." The audio was filled with static, but a voice broke through. "They call themselves servants of the Nova Judges, testing us, deciding if we're worthy. The Nova Judges have returned." The message dissolved into static. Reed looked to his officers. "Nova Judges? Anyone heard of them?" Wells tapped at her console. According to old records, the Nova Judges were an ancient species that once ruled as galactic arbiters. They supposedly went extinct 10,000 years ago. "Seems the history books were wrong," Reed said grimly. The ship suddenly rocked violently. "We're under attack," shouted Taylor. 3 Crimson vessels decloaking behind us. Reed didn't hesitate. "Battle stations, shields at maximum. Tactical, target the lead ship's propulsion systems." The Intrepid spun around, its weapons charging. The 3 red warships were unlike anything Reed had seen before. Their hulls seemed to shimmer and change shape, adapting to the Intrepid's targeting systems. "They're scanning us, sir," Wells reported. "They're studying our responses." Reed understood immediately. This isn't an attack. It's an assessment. He tapped a command into his chair's console, overriding the tactical station. The Intrepid's weapons reconfigured, firing a complex pattern that no computer would devise. It was pure human intuition, Reed's specialty. The lead Crimson ship rocked as the unexpected attack pattern caught it off guard. Its shields fluctuated. Again, Reed ordered, "Show them we're not predictable." As the battle continued, Reed noticed the Crimson ships weren't fighting to win. They were recording the Intrepid's every move, every tactic. After 10 minutes of exchange, the Crimson vessels suddenly broke off and jumped to hyperspace. "Should we pursue, sir?" Taylor asked. Reed shook his head. "No, they got what they came for." Information. A new transmission came through from Earth Command. Admiral Wilson looked even more haggard than before. "Reed, we're receiving reports of Crimson Fleet activity in 6 systems now. The Admiralty is ordering all ships to defensive positions around Earth and main colonies. With respect, Admiral, defense won't work against an enemy that's studying how we fight. The Crimson Fleet is gathering data for someone else. These Nova judges." Wilson's face darkened. "You have your orders, Captain. Fall back to Earth." After the transmission ended, the bridge was silent, all eyes on Reed. They knew that look on his face. Reed stood up, plot a course following the Crimson Fleet's hyperspace trail. Taylor's eyes widened. "Sir, that's a direct violation of orders." "I know." Reed looked around at his crew. "I'm not asking anyone to risk their career. If any of you want to log a formal objection, I'll note it in the ship's record." No one spoke. These people had served with Reed for years. They trusted him. The Nova judges, whoever they are testing humanity. Reed continued, "I don't intend to wait around for their verdict." He walked to the large view screen, looking out at the stars and the ruined colony below. Throughout history, judges have only had power when we give it to them. These Nova judges think they can decide humanity's fate. Well, I intend to show them that humans judge themselves. Reed turned back to face his crew, his eyes burning with determination. "Set course for the Crimson Fleet's last known coordinates. It's time they learned why they call me the Warrior." As the Intrepid's engines roared to life, the ship broke orbit and shot into hyperspace, leaving behind the smoking ruins of XB-12, not as a retreat, but as a promise that those responsible would face humanity's own brand of justice. Reed stood on the bridge, watching the stars stretch into lines. For the first time in his career, he was deliberately disobeying orders. But deep in his gut, he knew this was bigger than Earth Command, bigger than his career. The Nova judges had returned, and Reed would not let them be the arbiters of humanity's future. The hunt had begun. The Intrepid dropped out of hyperspace near an abandoned space station. The massive structure floated silently against the backdrop of a dying red star, its once gleaming hull now pitted and dark. "Scanners show it's an old trading post," reported Dr. Wells, studying her console. "Abandoned about 50 years ago when this star began to destabilize." Captain Reed stood from his command chair and approached the view screen. "Any sign of the Crimson Fleet?" "Nothing on scanners, sir," replied Tactical Officer Marcus Blake, a young man with steady hands and sharp eyes. "But there's a lot of debris around the station. Recent battle damage." Reed nodded. They were here, probably using it as a rendezvous point. He turned to his alien engineer. "Trell, can we dock with that station?" Trell's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of concentration among his people. His gray skin glistened under the bridge lights. "Yes, Captain. The main docking bay appears intact." "Prepare a boarding party," Reed ordered. "Blake, Wells, Trell, you're with me. Commander Taylor, you have the con. If anything happens, your first priority is to get the Intrepid back to Earth with whatever information we gather." Taylor frowned but nodded. "Understood, sir." The abandoned station was eerily quiet. Emergency lights cast red shadows across empty corridors as Reed led his team deeper into the structure. Their footsteps echoed in the silence. "This place gives me the creeps," Blake muttered, his hand hovering near his weapon. "Focus, Lieutenant," Reed replied. "Wells, what are you picking up?" Dr. Wells studied her scanner. "Energy readings up ahead. Some kind of data center, I think." They reached a large circular room filled with alien technology. Holographic displays flickered with symbols none of them recognized. "Can you make sense of this?" Reed asked Wells. She shook her head. "Not fully, but this appears to be surveillance data." She pointed to images of various planets. "They're watching multiple worlds. Human colonies, alien settlements, gathering data." Trell moved to a different console. "Captain, I recognize some of this technology. It's incredibly advanced, but it has elements similar to ancient artifacts my people preserved." "From the time of the Nova Judges?" Reed asked. Trell nodded. "Yes, my ancestors recorded that the judges would study species for generations before rendering verdict." Reed's face darkened. "Verdict on what?" "Whether a species deserved to exist in the galaxy," Trell replied quietly. A sudden noise made them all turn. Reed drew his weapon in one smooth motion. "We're not alone," he whispered. From the shadows emerged three figures in crimson armor. Their helmets concealed their faces, but their movements were fluid, predatory. "Humans," one of them spoke, voice distorted by a translator. "You should not be here." Reed didn't lower his weapon. "We go where we please. This station doesn't belong to you." "It belongs to the judges," the crimson soldier replied. "As does the fate of your kind." "No one owns humanity's fate except humanity," Reed countered. The lead soldier tilted its head. "Interesting. Your defiance confirms the judge's concerns." Without warning, the three soldiers attacked. Reed dove behind a console as energy blasts scorched the wall behind him. Blake returned fire, dropping one of the attackers. "Cover me," Reed shouted, then rolled out from his position and charged the nearest soldier. The Crimson Warrior was fast, but Reed was fueled by something the alien couldn't understand: raw human determination. He tackled the soldier to the ground, wrestling the weapon away before knocking the helmet off. Underneath was a face with pale blue skin and entirely black eyes. The alien snarled, revealing sharp teeth. "The Nova Judges will cleanse the galaxy of your chaos," it hissed. "I don't think so," Reed replied, knocking the alien unconscious with a swift strike. Blake had the third soldier cornered. "Sir, this one's trying to activate something." Reed rushed over, grabbing the soldier's arm before it could press a device on its wrist. With a quick twist, he forced the alien to the ground. "What were you activating?" Reed demanded. The alien laughed. "The truth." Suddenly, the room's holographic displays changed. A new image appeared, a being unlike any Reed had seen before. It appeared almost human, but its skin glowed with internal light, and its eyes held the depth of galaxies. "A Nova Judge," Trell whispered in awe. The judge spoke, its voice resonating oddly, as if coming from everywhere at once. "Species 7293, designation, human. Assessment continues. Subjects demonstrate unpredictable behavior patterns and resistance to guidance. Probability of peaceful integration, low. Recommendation, containment." The message repeated, then faded. "They're studying us like lab rats," Blake said angrily. Reed turned to the conscious Crimson soldier. "Why? What have we done to deserve judgment?" "It is not what you have done," the alien replied. "It is what you will do. Humans are chaotic, unpredictable. You do not follow logical patterns. The judges see the future paths of all species. Yours leads to destruction." Reed hauled the alien to its feet. "You're coming with us. I want to know everything about these judges." Back aboard the Intrepid, Reed gathered his senior officers. The captured soldier, now identified as Commander Vex of the Crimson Fleet, sat under guard. The Nova Judges were believed extinct, Vex explained reluctantly. They retreated to the edge of the galaxy 10,000 years ago, after guiding the evolution of spacefaring civilizations. Now they have returned to find the galaxy in disorder, and they've appointed themselves as the ones to fix it. Reed asked. "They created this galaxy's order," Vex replied. "Many species welcome their return. Their judgment is fair and final. Dr. Wells shook her head. Fair according to whom? Who gave them the right to decide which species lives or dies? Power gives them the right. Vex said simply. They have established a tribunal. 12 species have already been judged. 7 found worthy. 5 sentenced to containment. Containment? Taylor asked. Restricted to their home systems, prevented from further expansion, Vex explained. Those who resist are removed. Reed's expression hardened. And humanity, what's our status? Under assessment, Vex replied. But your reputation precedes you, Captain Reed. Your unpredictability makes the judges uncomfortable. Reed smiled slightly. Good. He turned to the view screen, where the abandoned station was still visible. The judges want to put humanity on trial. Fine, but they'll find we don't make easy defendants. Reed faced his crew. Set course for the Nova Tribunal. We're not waiting for Judgment Day to come to us. Sir, Taylor protested. That's suicide. We don't even know where this tribunal is. Reed looked at their prisoner. He does, and he's going to tell us. Vex laughed. You truly are as reckless as the stories say, warrior. The Nova judges fear humans because you do things no rational species would attempt, like taking the fight directly to beings who think they're gods. Reed asked. Exactly, Vex replied, his laughter fading. They will destroy you. Reed leaned close to the alien. Maybe. But here's something your judges don't understand about humans. We don't fear judgment. We challenge it. As the Intrepid's engines powered up, Reed returned to his command chair. The path ahead was dangerous, possibly suicidal. But humanity's freedom to determine its own destiny was worth any risk. The ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying the warrior toward a confrontation no human had ever faced before. The Intrepid sailed through a region of space no human vessel had ever entered. Stars here were scattered in strange patterns, and the laws of physics seemed to bend in unpredictable ways. Sensors are barely functioning, reported Dr. Wells from her station. Space itself seems different here. Captain Reed nodded, his face troubled. For 3 nights, he had barely slept. When he did close his eyes, nightmares waited for him. Visions of a tall, glowing figure standing in judgment over Earth, raising a hand to erase humanity from existence. How much farther? Reed asked their prisoner. Commander Vex sat on the bridge under guard, his blue skin looking pale. The boundary is ahead. Beyond it lies the domain of the Nova judges. On the view screen, space itself seemed to ripple like water. I've never seen anything like this, Taylor muttered. Reed gripped the arms of his command chair tighter. Something about this place felt familiar, though he knew he'd never been here before. Sir, Blake called from Tactical. I'm detecting something large ahead. On screen, Reed ordered. The view screen showed a vast field of debris stretching for millions of kilometers. As they drew closer, the crew fell silent in shock. These weren't just random fragments of rock and metal. They were ships, thousands of them, from countless different civilizations. A graveyard, Trell whispered. The remains of those who challenged the judges. Reed stood, approaching the view screen. Scan for life signs. Sir. Wells looked confused. Just do it, Reed insisted. Wells ran the scan, then gasped. There are life signs, scattered throughout the debris field. Hundreds of them. Survivors, Reed said grimly, gathering a rescue team. We're going out there. Vex laughed bitterly. Those aren't survivors, Captain. They're the sentenced, species deemed unworthy of continued evolution, but not deserving of extinction. The judges leave them here as examples. Reed's jaw tightened. All the more reason to get them out. The shuttle carefully navigated through the debris field. Reed led the rescue team himself, along with Blake, Wells, and 2 security officers. What they found in the wrecked ships shocked even Reed's battle-hardened heart. Beings from a dozen different species lived in the ruins, creating makeshift colonies among the destroyed vessels. Some had been here for generations, their original crime against the Nova judges long forgotten. A tall, thin alien with 4 arms approached Reed's team. Visitors or new prisoners? It asked in a rasping voice. Neither, Reed replied. We're here to help. The alien studied Reed. Humans, we've heard of your kind. The judges speak of you often, with concern. Why? Wells asked. What have we done? You evolve too quickly, change too readily. The judges prefer species they can predict. The alien gestured around at the debris field. All of us here share that quality. Unpredictability. Reed looked around at the makeshift society. How many of you are there? Nearly 3,000 from 17 condemned species, the alien replied. I am Elder Ziv of the Kellen. We were sentenced here 500 years ago. For what crime? Blake asked. We developed technology that could hide our thoughts from the judges, Ziv explained. They claimed it threatened the balance. Reed nodded. We can evacuate as many as possible. Our ship can. No, Ziv interrupted. The judges monitor this place. Any mass escape would bring their wrath. But you? Ziv studied Reed closely. You bear the mark. What mark? Reed asked. Ziv reached out, touching Reed's temple with one long finger. Here, the neural signature. You've encountered a judge before. Reed stepped back, confused. No, I haven't. Dr. Wells quickly scanned Reed with her medical device. Her eyes widened. Captain, there's something in your brain. Some kind of neural implant. It's very advanced. That's impossible, Reed protested. But even as he spoke, fragments of memory surfaced. A bright light, a sense of being examined, and a voice that seemed to echo from the stars themselves. When was your first command? Ziv asked. The UES Defiant, 15 years ago. Reed replied automatically. We were charting the Sigma sector when. Reed stopped, his face going pale. When we lost 3 days. The crew and I. We thought it was a virus that affected our memories. You were judged, Ziv said simply. And marked for observation. Wells continued scanning. The implant seems designed to activate fully when exposed to specific energy patterns. It's been dormant, but it's becoming more active the closer we get to Nova space. Reed's hand went to his temple. Get it out. I don't think that's wise, sir, Wells replied. It's integrated with your neural pathways. Removing it could cause brain damage. Reed was about to respond when Blake shouted a warning. Captain, we've got company. Through the debris field came a sleek vessel with a pulsing blue hull. Unlike the Crimson Fleet ships, this one moved with impossible grace, as if space itself bent to accommodate its passage. A Nova Scout, Ziv whispered in fear. They know you're here. Back aboard the Intrepid, chaos erupted. As Reed and his team returned from the debris field, alarms blared throughout the ship. Report, Reed commanded, striding onto the bridge. We've detected a sabotage attempt in engineering, Taylor explained quickly. Security teams found Lieutenant Cooper trying to disable our weapons systems. Reed's eyes narrowed. Cooper? He's been with us for 5 years. Security officers brought in the lieutenant, who looked at Reed with cold determination. Why? Reed demanded. Because you'll get everyone killed, Cooper replied. The Nova judges are too powerful to fight. Earth Command knew you'd disobey orders, Captain. They sent me to make sure you didn't provoke a war humanity can't win. Reed stepped closer to the traitor. Who gave you these orders? Admiral Wilson himself, Cooper said proudly. There are those in Earth government who understand the Nova judges aren't our enemies unless we make them so. They want peace. Peace through submission. Reed asked, disgusted. Peace through survival, Cooper countered. The Nova vessel is hailing us, Captain. Surrender now, and humanity might still have a chance. Reed turned to communications, put them through. The view screen flickered, and for the first time, the crew of the Intrepid saw a Nova judge. It appeared almost human, but its skin glowed from within with cosmic light. Its eyes held the depth of space itself, and when it spoke, its voice seemed to bypass the ears and speak directly to the mind. "Captain James Reed," the judge said, "you trespass where humans are not welcome." Reed stepped forward. "This galaxy doesn't belong to you. All things belong to those with wisdom to guide them," the judge replied. "Your species has been observed and found wanting. Turn back now or face judgment." Reed felt something stirring in his mind, the implant activating, filling his thoughts with memories that weren't quite his own. Knowledge of the Nova judges flowed through him, including their weaknesses. "No," Reed replied firmly. "If you want to judge humanity, you'll have to start with me." The Nova vessel fired without warning. The Intrepid rocked violently. "Evasive maneuvers," Reed ordered. "Tactical, target their propulsion systems." What followed was the most difficult battle of Reed's career. The Nova ship moved like nothing he had ever faced, anticipating the Intrepid's every maneuver. But Reed had something the judge didn't expect. The neural implant was now feeding him information about Nova technology. "Adjust phasers to rotating frequency," Reed commanded. "Fire on my mark." The Intrepid's weapons struck home, causing the Nova vessel to falter. "Again," Reed ordered. The second volley disabled the Nova ship's main systems. It drifted, damaged but not destroyed. "We did it," Taylor said in disbelief. Reed shook his head. "No, we just announced our presence." He turned to navigation. "Set course for the coordinates Ziv gave us. It's time we took this fight to the heart of Nova space." As the Intrepid jumped away, Reed touched his temple, feeling the implant pulse beneath his skin. The Nova judges had made a critical mistake years ago. They had marked Reed for observation, but in doing so, they had given him the very knowledge he needed to fight them. The warrior was coming for the judges, and no force in the universe would stand in his way. The Intrepid slowed from hyperspace, emerging into a region of space that defied human understanding. Before them hung an enormous structure, not quite a space station, not quite a planet, built around a dying star. The star's light pulsed in strange patterns, like a heartbeat growing weaker. "That's it," Vex said, his voice filled with awe. "The Court of Stars, the center of the Nova judges' domain." Captain Reed stood at the viewscreen, his face illuminated by the dying star's glow. The neural implant in his brain pulsed in rhythm with the star, sending waves of information through his mind. "There are 17 judges," Reed said, the knowledge flowing from the implant, each one responsible for judging different aspects of a species' worth. Dr. Wells looked at him with concern. "Captain, the implant's activity is increasing. Your brain chemistry is changing." Reed nodded. "I can feel it. I'm remembering things. Knowledge that isn't mine." Commander Taylor stepped closer. "Sir, are you sure you're fit for command?" "I'm fine," Reed insisted. "The implant is giving us an advantage. It knows this place, these beings." The Intrepid sensors detected hundreds of ships surrounding the massive structure, representing dozens of alien civilizations. "Why are so many ships gathered here?" Blake asked. "To witness judgment," Vex explained. "The Nova judges are preparing to pass sentence on another species." Reed's expression hardened. "We need to get inside. See what happens during these judgments." "That's impossible," Vex protested. "Only invited representatives may enter the court." Reed turned to him with a cold smile. "Then we'll have to get an invitation." 4 hours later, Reed led a small team toward the Court of Stars in a confiscated Crimson Fleet shuttle. With them was Vex, securely restrained but necessary for his knowledge. "The Crimson Fleet serves as the judges' enforcers," Vex explained as they approached the massive structure. "We'll be granted entry, but you'll need to maintain your disguise." Reed, Wells, Blake, and Trell wore modified crimson armor, their faces hidden behind the alien helmets. The shuttle docked at one of the thousands of entry ports along the structure's surface. "Remember," Reed told his team, "We're here to observe only. Stay hidden, stay quiet." They passed through security without incident, Vex's credentials granting them access. Inside, the Court of Stars was even more impossible than outside. Corridors shifted and changed direction without warning. Gravity fluctuated. Light seemed to have substance, flowing like water through the air. "This place doesn't follow normal physics," Wells whispered, studying her scanner. "It's like reality itself is being bent." Reed felt the implant in his brain guiding him. "This way," he said, turning down a corridor that seemed to lead nowhere until they approached it. They emerged onto a balcony overlooking an enormous chamber. Below them, thousands of alien beings sat in concentric circles around a central platform. Above the platform, the dying star was visible through a transparent ceiling. Its light focused into a beam that touched the center of the platform. "What are we seeing?" Blake asked quietly. "Judgment," Vex replied. "Watch." On the platform stood several small, insect-like beings. Their exoskeletons glistened in the starlight as they chittered nervously. Facing them were 3 Nova judges, their glowing forms towering over the aliens. "Species 8219, designation Threen," announced one of the judges, its voice resonating through the chamber without seeming to use sound. "You stand before us for final judgment." "We have committed no crime," one of the insect beings protested. "Our people have always been peaceful." "Peace is not the measure," the judge replied. "Evolution is. Your kind has shown concerning developments." Images appeared in the air above the platform. The Threen world, their technology, their culture. The implant in Reed's brain translated the information for him. The Threen had developed technology that allowed them to communicate instantaneously across vast distances, creating a hive mind among their species. "Your collective consciousness threatens the balance," the judge continued. "It could evolve beyond our ability to monitor. This cannot be permitted." "But it is who we are," the Threen representative pleaded. "To deny us this evolution is to deny our very nature." The judge raised a glowing hand. "The judgment is extinction." Reed's body tensed. Around the chamber, the assembled aliens watched in silence as the beam of starlight intensified. The 3 beings on the platform began to dissolve, their bodies turning to light that was absorbed back into the star. Blake couldn't finish the sentence. "Murdered them," Reed said coldly. "And their entire species with them. The star sends the extinction command to their homeworld." Wells looked sick behind her helmet. "This isn't justice, it's genocide." "The judges believe they're preserving the galaxy's balance," Vex said quietly. "They eliminate species that might one day challenge their power." "How many have they killed?" Trell asked. "Hundreds over the millennia," Vex replied. "Maybe thousands." Reed felt rage building inside him. "We need to get out of here. Now." As they turned to leave, Reed came face to face with a Nova judge. It towered over him, its light pulsing with curious patterns. "Your disguise does not fool us, human," the judge said directly into Reed's mind. "We have been waiting for you, James Reed." Before his team could react, they were surrounded by crimson soldiers. Reed reached for his weapon, but found his body wouldn't respond. "Your neural implant," the judge explained. "It has been activating gradually, giving you knowledge. But it also gives us control when needed." Reed fought against the invisible force paralyzing him. "What do you want from me?" "You were marked 15 years ago as a representative specimen of humanity. Your species is unusual, unpredictable, chaotic. We have been studying you through the implant." The judge moved closer, its light enveloping Reed. "It is time for your memories to be harvested." Reed awoke on the judgment platform. His team was nowhere to be seen. Above him, the dying star pulsed with malevolent light. Around him stood 7 Nova judges, their glowing forms creating a circle. "James Reed," the lead judge spoke. "You stand before the Nova Council not as an individual, but as a representative of humanity." Reed tried to move but found himself held in place by invisible forces. I don't represent anyone but myself. Incorrect, the judge replied. The neural implant contains not just your memories, but the collective experience of humanity. Through you, we have watched your species develop. And what's your verdict? Reed asked bitterly. Extinction. Containment. Humanity was judged long ago, another judge said. Your current evaluation is merely confirmation. Reed felt the implant in his brain growing hotter. Memories flooded him, not just his own, but hundreds, thousands of human experiences. The implant hadn't just been recording his life. It had been collecting data from everyone he interacted with, building a vast library of human experience. You've been watching us all along, Reed realized. The implant spreads like a virus, copying itself into the minds of those I meet. Your species was sentenced to containment 50 years ago, the lead judge explained. But certain among your kind discovered our monitors. They have been working to prevent our judgment from being executed. Earth Command, Reed whispered. Admiral Wilson and the others. They know about you. They sought compromise, the judge said dismissively. They offered to limit human expansion in exchange for continued autonomy. But your actions, Warrior, have proven our original assessment correct. Humans cannot be trusted with freedom. The star's light intensified, focusing on Reed. He felt the implant heating to unbearable levels. Your mind will now be dissected, the judge announced. All human knowledge within the implant network will be extracted. Then the extinction protocol will be initiated. Reed closed his eyes, fighting against the burning in his brain. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. You know, he said through gritted teeth, for beings that claim to be all-knowing judges, you've made one crucial mistake. Explain, the judge demanded. Reed opened his eyes, meeting the cosmic gaze without fear. You've given me access to your knowledge through this implant. I know your laws better than you do. The judges shifted, their light patterns showing confusion. By your own ancient code, Reed continued, any species facing extinction has the right to trial by combat against their accuser. I invoke that right now. The judges conferred silently, their lights pulsing in patterns too complex for normal human perception. But Reed, with the enhanced neural implant, could interpret their debate. The right has not been invoked in 7,000 years, the lead judge finally said. But it still exists, Reed insisted. Your law is absolute, isn't it? Or do you break your own rules when convenient? The chamber fell silent. The assembled alien representatives watched in shock as Reed challenged the Nova judges on their own terms. Very well, the lead judge finally agreed. Trial by combat is granted. But understand, human, this is not physical combat. It is a battle of minds. Few have survived the experience. Reed stood straighter as the invisible restraints released him. I'm ready. The lead judge approached, its glowing form expanding. Then let judgment begin. The star above flared brilliantly, and Reed's world dissolved into light. Reed stood in a vast empty space. There were no walls, no floor, no ceiling, just endless white light stretching in all directions. Before him stood the high judge, its glowing form towering and pulsing with cosmic energy. The trial begins, the judge announced, its voice echoing from everywhere and nowhere. Your mind against mine, human. Few have ever survived such a contest. Reed felt strangely calm. What are the rules? The judge's light flickered in what might have been amusement. There are no rules in a battle of minds. Only will against will, reality against reality. The white space suddenly transformed. Reed found himself standing on Earth, but not the Earth he knew. This world was burning. Cities collapsed into ruins as humans fought each other with savage weapons. This is humanity's true nature, the judge's voice explained as scenes of war and destruction played out around Reed. Chaos, violence, self-destruction. Reed watched as people killed each other over resources, over beliefs, over simple misunderstandings. The scenes were painful to witness, but he stood firm. You're showing only part of the truth, Reed replied. Yes, we fight. We destroy. But that's not all we are. Using the neural implant's connection to the judge's mind, Reed pushed back. The burning landscape shifted, showing humans helping each other after disasters, building communities, creating art and music, exploring space with wonder rather than conquest. This is also humanity, Reed insisted. We contain both light and darkness. That's what you fear, isn't it? That we can't be predicted or controlled because we're always both. The judge seemed to grow larger, its light burning brighter. Your unpredictability threatens the galaxy's order. All species must evolve along paths we can foresee. The scene changed again. Reed found himself on the bridge of the Intrepid, but something was wrong. His crew looked at him with cold, identical expressions. This is what we offer, the judge explained. Order, certainty, peace. Reed understood immediately. You want to remake humanity in your image. Make us predictable. It is mercy, the judge replied. The alternative is extinction. Meanwhile, on the real Intrepid, Commander Taylor paced the bridge nervously. It's been 12 hours with no word from the captain. We need to do something. Dr. Wells, who had returned with Blake and Trell after being separated from Reed, worked frantically at her console. The neural implant in the captain's brain is transmitting data. Massive amounts of it. To where? Taylor asked. Back to us, Wells replied, surprised. It's sending us everything it knows about the Nova judges, their technology, their history, their weaknesses. Trell joined them, his 4 eyes wide with excitement. I think I understand. The captain isn't just fighting for his life in there. He's fighting for information. Can we help him? Taylor asked. Maybe, Wells replied. The implant works both ways. If we can broadcast a signal back through it, strengthen his connection to us. Do it, Taylor ordered. There's more, Blake added from Tactical. The captain is also transmitting to the alien ships gathered here. He's showing them what the judges really are. In the mind battle, Reed fought against overwhelming power. The judge bombarded him with visions of humanity's worst atrocities, trying to make him accept their judgment. You wage war, the judge accused. You destroy environments. You create weapons capable of ending all life. Yes, Reed admitted. We do terrible things, but we also learn from our mistakes. We grow. We change. Change is chaos, the judge insisted. Reed felt something new, a connection strengthening in his mind. His crew was reaching out to him through the implant, sending their support, their trust. With renewed strength, Reed pushed back against the judge's visions. You call yourselves judges, but you're really just afraid of anything you can't control. The white space flickered as Reed's will contested the judge's reality. Around them, scenes from Earth's history played out. Wars giving way to peace, destruction followed by rebuilding, hatred transformed into understanding. This is what makes us human, Reed explained. Not just our capacity for violence, but our ability to overcome it. We judge ourselves more harshly than you ever could. The judge seemed to falter. You cannot be trusted with your own evolution. Look at what you might become. A new vision appeared. Humans evolved into beings of pure energy, similar to the judges themselves, spreading across the galaxy and beyond. Reed smiled. So that's what this is really about. You're afraid we'll become like you someday. You would replace us, the judge admitted, as all children eventually replace their parents. That's not something to fear, Reed replied. It's something to be proud of. Reed sensed the battle shifting in his favor. Using knowledge from the implant, he pushed deeper into the judge's mind, discovering its true nature. The Nova judges had once been physical beings themselves, evolving over millions of years into creatures of energy and thought. They had appointed themselves guardians of evolution, determining which species deserved to advance and which needed to be contained or destroyed. You're not gods, Reed said firmly. You're just an older species, afraid of being surpassed. As they fought, Reed was also broadcasting everything he learned to the assembled alien representatives watching the trial. Through the neural implants connection, he showed them the judge's secret fears, their manipulations, their lies. The judge sensed what was happening and attacked with renewed fury. "You disrupt the order of ages." "Good," Reed replied, standing his ground. "It's time for a new order." On the Intrepid, Wells watched in amazement as alien ships began breaking formation, moving away from the Court of Stars. "They're leaving," she reported. "The representatives are abandoning the judges." Taylor leaned forward. "What's happening with the captain?" "His neural patterns are stabilizing," Wells replied. I think he's winning." In the white space, Reed stood face to face with the High Judge, whose light had dimmed considerably. "You have revealed our nature to those we judged," the being said, its voice weaker than before. "They will no longer accept our authority." "They shouldn't," Reed replied. "No species should have the power to judge whether another deserves to exist. We all have the right to find our own path." The judge's form seemed to shrink. "Without our guidance, the galaxy will fall into chaos." "Maybe," Reed admitted. "Or maybe it will find a better balance, one based on cooperation rather than fear." The white space began to dissolve around them, reality reasserting itself. Reed found himself back on the judgment platform. Around him, the chamber was nearly empty, most of the alien representatives having fled. The 7 Nova judges stood in a circle, their light significantly dimmed. "You have won the trial by combat," the High Judge acknowledged. "By our own law, humanity is spared judgment." Reed stood tall, facing them without fear. "Not just humanity. All species deserve freedom from your judgment." "You demand too much," another judge protested. "No," Reed replied firmly. "I'm offering you something instead. A new role. Not as judges, but as teachers. Share your knowledge, but let each species choose its own path." The judges conferred silently among themselves. Finally, the High Judge spoke. "We will consider your proposal. The age of judgment is ended. What comes next remains to be seen." 3 weeks later, the Intrepid approached Earth. Reed stood on the bridge, watching as the blue planet grew larger on the view screen. "You did it, sir," Taylor said with admiration. "You changed the entire galaxy." Reed shook his head. "We all did, and our work is just beginning." The neural implant had been safely removed once they left Nova space. With it had come vast knowledge of technologies and sciences that would advance humanity by centuries. More importantly, Earth now had a voice in a new galactic community forming from the ashes of the judge's reign. "Admiral Wilson is requesting to speak with you," Jones reported from communications. Reed smiled. "Tell him I'll be happy to report after shore leave." As the Intrepid entered Earth orbit, Reed recorded his final log entry. The Nova judges believed fear was necessary for order. They feared change, unpredictability, chaos. But fear is the enemy of understanding. What they never grasped is that true strength comes not from judging others, but from facing the unknown with courage and an open mind. Humanity will make mistakes as we join the wider galactic community, but they'll be our mistakes to make and learn from. And that's exactly as it should be. This is Captain James Reed of the UES Intrepid. End log. The warrior who feared no judge had returned home, bringing with him a future where humanity would judge itself, not be judged by others. And in that victory was the greatest lesson of all. True courage isn't about fearlessness in battle, but about facing the unknown future with hope rather than fear.
The sky burned red above the ruins of New Washington. 6 months had passed since the Dominion ships first appeared in Earth's atmosphere. 6 months since humanity learned they were not alone in the universe. 6 months of defeat after crushing defeat. Commander Jack Turner watched from the broken window of an underground bunker as alien patrol ships cut through the evening sky. His face, once clean-shaven and proud, now bore a thick beard and a long scar running from his right eye to his jaw. a reminder of how close he had come to death during the first wave of attacks. "They're increasing patrols again," said Lisa, a former communications specialist who had been with Jack since the fall of the North American Defense Command. She joined him at the window, her dark hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, eyes constantly scanning for danger. Jack nodded. "Third time this week. They're looking for something. Or someone," he thought, but didn't say. The resistance was small, but growing, and the Dominion knew it. The bunker housed 43 survivors, soldiers, scientists, and civilians who had managed to escape the initial assault. They lived on salvaged rations and hope, though the latter was in increasingly short supply. "Commander, you need to see this." The voice belonged to Ben, their tech expert who spent most days trying to hack into Dominion communications. His round glasses sat crookedly on his nose as he waved Jack over to his workstation, a collection of salvaged equipment that somehow still functioned. Jack crossed the room in quick strides. "What is it?" "I picked up a signal. Encrypted. Military grade." Ben's fingers danced across the keyboard. "It bounced through 3 different satellites before I caught it." Lisa leaned over his shoulder. "Dominion?" "No," Ben said, excitement creeping into his voice. "It's one of ours." Jack felt his heart rate quicken. Most human military communication had gone dark months ago. "Can you trace it?" "Better. I can decode it." Ben typed furiously. "It's using an old emergency protocol, Phoenix 7. Jack's breath caught. Phoenix 7 was reserved for only the most dire situations. It meant someone with high-level military clearance was still out there. The screen flickered as text appeared. 2. Any remaining Earth command from Admiral Reynolds, TFS Defiance message. We endure. The fleet survives. Hold fast. Coordinates to follow on secure channel. "Reynolds is alive," Jack whispered, hardly believing it. Admiral Tom Reynolds had commanded Earth's most advanced battle group, the ships that had mysteriously vanished when the invasion began. Many thought they had been destroyed or had fled. "The tactical fleet survives," Lisa said, her voice filled with renewed hope. "But where have they been all this time?" Jack's mind raced with possibilities. The tactical fleet represented humanity's most advanced warships, vessels built with technology recovered from a crashed alien scout ship decades before the invasion. They were powerful but few in number, not enough to take on the entire Dominion force, which explained their disappearance. "Protocol Omega," Jack said suddenly. "That's what Reynolds implemented." Ben looked up. "Protocol Omega?" It was theoretical, a last resort plan. If Earth ever faced an overwhelming alien force, our most advanced ships would go dark and hide in deep space, wait until the time was right to strike back. Lisa's eyes widened. "And that time is now?" Before Jack could answer, alarms blared throughout the bunker. Red emergency lights flashed as the security system detected movement above ground. "Dominion. Ground forces," called out Marcus, their lookout. "At least 20 approaching from the east." "They've found us," Jack said grimly. "Everyone, evacuation plan Delta. Move." The bunker erupted into organized chaos. People grabbed pre-packed bags and essential equipment. They had practiced this drill dozens of times, but this was real. "Ben, download that message and coordinates. We need them." Jack grabbed his rifle and checked the ammunition. "Lisa, take point on the escape tunnel." As the team prepared to move out, Jack felt a strange calm settle over him. For months they had been running, hiding, merely trying to survive. Now for the first time there was something more. A purpose. The escape tunnel led them 2 miles east, exiting through an abandoned subway station. They emerged under cover of darkness, the sound of Dominion search crafts echoing in the distance. "They hit the bunker," Marcus reported, looking at a small radar device. "Places crawling with them now." Jack nodded grimly. "Keep moving. We need to reach the fallback position by dawn." They traveled through the night, avoiding Dominion patrols, moving through the hollowed-out remains of what had once been a thriving city. Buildings stood like broken teeth against the skyline, monuments to humanity's recent past. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, they reached their destination, an old military storage facility hidden beneath a collapsed highway overpass. It was smaller than their previous hideout but had one critical advantage: a functioning communications array. Once inside, Ben immediately went to work on the coordinates from Reynolds' message. "Got it," he said after an hour of careful decryption. It's not on Earth." Jack leaned over to look at the screen. "Kuiper Belt, outer solar system." "How are we supposed to get there?" Lisa asked, voicing what everyone was thinking. "We barely have transportation to cross the city, let alone reach space." Jack stared at the coordinates, a plan already forming. "There's a Dominion outpost 10 miles west. They have shuttles." "You want to steal an alien spacecraft?" Marcus asked incredulously. "Not just any spacecraft," Jack replied. "We need one capable of long-distance travel." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "This is suicide," someone muttered. Jack turned to face the group. "Maybe, but for 6 months we've been running, hiding, just trying to stay alive one more day. And what has it gotten us? A life of fear, watching our world burn." He pointed to the coordinates on the screen. "For the first time we have hope, real hope. Reynolds and the fleet are out there. If we can reach them, we can fight back." Lisa finished, determination hardening her features. "Not just fight back," Jack said, his voice growing stronger. "We can win." The rising sun cast long shadows through the broken windows, illuminating the tired but resolute faces of the survivors. In their eyes, Jack saw something that had been missing for months. Hope. "Rest today," he ordered. "Tomorrow we plan our approach to the Dominion outpost. And then..." He looked at the coordinates once more, a small smile forming on his face. "And then we're going to space to find our fleet." As the others dispersed to set up the new base, Jack remained at the communications array. He typed a brief message using the Phoenix 7 encryption protocol to Admiral Reynolds, TFS Defiance from Commander Turner, Earth Resistance message. Received. Coming to you. Humanity still stands. He hit send, watching as the message disappeared into the ether, a small act of defiance against the beings who thought they had conquered humanity. The war was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. 5 years passed since Commander Jack Turner sent his message to Admiral Reynolds. 5 years of careful planning and quiet resistance. The world had changed in ways few could have imagined before the invasion. New Washington, once a pile of rubble, had been rebuilt in the Dominion's image. Tall crystalline structures now towered over the remains of human architecture. The aliens had established what they called integration zones, where humans worked under their rule, mining resources and building more ships for the ever-expanding Dominion fleet. Jack no longer looked like a military commander. His hair had grown long, tied back with a piece of wire. He wore salvaged clothes that helped him blend in with other human workers. The scar on his face had faded to a thin white line, but the fire in his eyes remained as strong as ever. "ID check ahead," Lisa whispered as they approached the gates of Work Zone 7. She had adapted too, becoming an expert at moving through Dominion. Security undetected. Jack nodded and pulled out his forged worker badge. The Dominion used basic biometric scanning, but thanks to Ben's technical skills, they had found ways around it. Today's mission was simple but crucial. Gather information from inside the Dominion's main communication hub. The tall, insect-like guard scanned Jack's badge with its compound eyes glowing blue. After a moment, it waved him through. Lisa followed shortly behind. 5 years. She muttered as they walked toward the massive dish array at the center of the complex. 5 years and we're still sneaking around. Jack kept his voice low. Not for much longer. The resistance had grown from their small group of 43 to a network of thousands, spread across what remained of human territory. But they had been careful, patient, gathering intelligence and resources while waiting for the right moment. "There's Mark." Jack nodded toward a maintenance vehicle where their fellow resistance member pretended to work on some wiring. Mark had managed to secure a position as a technician, giving him access to Dominion systems. As they passed the vehicle, Mark slipped Jack a small data drive without breaking his work rhythm. The exchange took less than a second, invisible to the watching guards. "Let's move," Jack said, continuing toward their assigned workstation. "We've got 4 hours before shift change." Their task for the day was mundane, sorting through salvaged human technology for parts the Dominion found useful. It was perfect cover for what they really needed to do. Hours later, as the red sun began to set, they made their way back to the current resistance hideout, an abandoned subway tunnel that had escaped Dominion detection thanks to old lead shielding in the walls that blocked their scans. Ben was waiting eagerly when they arrived. "Did you get it?" Jack handed over the data drive. "Let's hope it was worth the risk." The main chamber of their hideout buzzed with activity. Nearly 50 resistance members worked on various projects, from modifying weapons to training new recruits. It was one of 12 similar cells operating across the former United States. "Everyone gather round," Jack called out once Ben had inserted the drive into their cobbled-together computer system. "Let's see what we've got." The screen flickered to life, displaying Dominion text that Ben had learned to translate over the years. "It's a security briefing," Ben said, scanning through the information. They're worried about something." "Us?" Lisa asked. Ben shook his head. "No, something else. They keep referring to something called the Phoenix Protocol. They think it's a threat." Jack's heart raced. Phoenix Protocol, the same code name used in Admiral Reynolds' message 5 years ago. "There's more," Ben continued, his voice rising with excitement. "They've detected unusual energy signatures in the outer solar system. They're sending scout ships to investigate." The room fell silent as the implications became clear. "Reynolds is making his move," Jack said finally. "After all this time." "But we never reached him," Mark pointed out. "We never managed to steal a ship capable of deep space travel." Jack turned to another screen where a familiar set of coordinates still glowed. "Maybe we didn't need to. Maybe he just needed time to prepare." "There's something else here," Ben said suddenly, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "The Dominion isn't just taking our resources. They're planning to eliminate the remaining human population once extraction is complete." Angry murmurs spread through the group. "How long?" Jack asked. 6 months, maybe less," Ben replied grimly. Jack paced the room, mind racing. If Reynolds is making his move now, and the Dominion is accelerating their plans, this is it, the moment we've been waiting for. He turned to face the group. "We need to contact Reynolds. Let him know what's happening here." "The communication dish at Work Zone 7 could reach that far," Lisa suggested. "But we'd need direct access to their transmitters. It would be a suicide mission." "Not if we create a big enough distraction," Jack countered. "The old nuclear power plant west of here, the Dominion uses it to power their regional operations. If we could temporarily disable it, we could create a window." Mark finished. "Their backup systems would kick in for essential functions, but communications would be prioritized last." The plan came together quickly. Years of resistance had taught them how to work efficiently, how to use the Dominion's own systems against them. 3 days later, as darkness fell, Jack and a small team approached the power plant while Lisa and Ben positioned themselves near the communication hub. "In position," Jack radioed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Ready here?" Lisa confirmed. Jack looked at the small explosive device in his hand. Not enough to cause a meltdown, just enough to trip the safety systems and force a temporary shutdown. "Now," he ordered. The explosion was small but effective. Alarms blared across the complex as Dominion guards rushed toward the power plant. In the confusion, Lisa and Ben slipped into the communication hub. "We're in," Lisa reported minutes later. "Ben's working on the transmitter now." Jack and his team were already moving away from the power plant, using underground tunnels to evade the searching guards. "Hurry," he urged. "You've got 3 minutes before backup power redirects to security systems." Inside the communication hub, Ben worked frantically, connecting their encrypted message to the Dominion's deep space transmitter. Lisa stood guard at the door. "Someone's coming," she warned, readying her weapon. Almost there, Ben muttered. His fingers flew across the alien controls, applying everything he had learned over 5 years of studying their technology. The door began to slide open. "Ben!" Lisa hissed. "Sent," he exclaimed, disconnecting their device just as the door opened to reveal a Dominion guard. What happened next was a blur of motion and sound. Lisa fired her weapon, the guard fell, and alarms blared throughout the facility. "Move!" she shouted, grabbing Ben by the arm. They ran through the complex as lights flickered back to full power. The distraction had worked, but now they needed to escape. Back at the hideout hours later, Jack paced anxiously. Most of the team had returned, but Lisa and Ben were still missing. When they finally stumbled in, exhausted and with Lisa supporting a wounded Ben, Jack rushed forward. "Did it work?" he asked. Despite the pain of his injury, Ben smiled. "Message sent. And I got something else too." He handed Jack a data chip. The coordinates of every Dominion outpost on Earth, and better yet, the location of a long-range shuttle, in for repairs, minimal guards. Jack looked at the injured man with newfound respect. "You're incredible, Ben." "Did he respond?" Lisa asked. "Reynolds?" Jack shook his head. "Not yet, but he will." As if on cue, their communication system crackled to life. A voice, distorted by distance but undeniably human, came through. "Earth Resistance, this is Admiral Reynolds of the Terran fleet ship Defiance. Your message received. Coordinates 4, rendezvous to follow. Prepare for extraction. The Phoenix rises." A cheer erupted through the hideout as hope, real and tangible, spread through the group for the first time in 5 years. Jack smiled. The true fight was only beginning, but humanity was ready. The ships of war were rising again. The stolen Dominion shuttle shuddered as it pushed through the icy debris of the Kuiper Belt. Inside, Jack gripped the control panel, his knuckles white. Behind him, Lisa monitored the life support systems while Ben, still recovering from his wound, worked on the communication array. "Any sign of pursuit?" Jack asked, eyes fixed on the darkness ahead. Mark checked the rear scanners. "Nothing yet, but they'll know their shuttle is missing by now." Getting off Earth had been the easy part, surprisingly, with the coordinates provided by Admiral Reynolds and the location of the lightly guarded repair facility from Ben's stolen data. They had managed to secure the shuttle with minimal resistance. The hard part had been deciding who would go and who would stay behind to coordinate the ground resistance. In the end, Jack had chosen a team of 4, himself, Lisa, Ben, and Mark, each with skills they would need for the mission. "How much farther?" Lisa asked, checking Ben's bandages. The man had lost blood during their escape, but his condition had stabilized. Jack checked the navigation system. "According to these coordinates, we should be approaching the rendezvous point now, but I don't see anything." The shuttle drifted through the darkness, surrounded by ice chunks and cosmic dust. Nothing that looked like a hidden fleet base. "Wait," Ben called out suddenly. "I'm picking up a signal, very faint, directed right at us." A voice crackled through. Their communication system, distorted but clearly human. "Unidentified shuttle. Transmit authorization code or prepare to be destroyed." Jack quickly entered the code Reynolds had sent in his last message. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, before their eyes, the empty space ahead seemed to ripple and shift. "Cloaking technology," Ben whispered in awe as a massive structure materialized before them. It was an asteroid nearly 2 miles across, but clearly modified. Hangar doors were visible on its surface, and lights glowed from within what should have been solid rock. "Shuttle identified," the voice returned, clearer now. "Follow the guidance beacon to Hangar 3. A small blue light appeared on their view screen, leading them toward one of the openings in the asteroid's surface. Jack carefully maneuvered the shuttle along the indicated path. "I can't believe it," Lisa said softly. "All these years." The hangar doors parted, revealing a cavernous space carved into the asteroid, and inside, ships, human ships, military vessels bearing the emblem of Earth's United Defense Forces. As they landed, Jack saw armed personnel approaching their shuttle, moving with the discipline of trained soldiers. "Remember," he cautioned his team. "We don't know what they've been doing all this time. Stay alert." They exited the shuttle with hands raised, squinting under the bright hangar lights. A tall man with a neatly trimmed gray beard stepped forward from the group of soldiers. He wore a uniform Jack recognized immediately, the dark blue of Earth's Tactical Fleet Command. "Commander Turner?" the man asked. Jack nodded. "Admiral Reynolds, I presume?" A small smile crossed the Admiral's face. 5 years is a long time, Commander. Welcome to Phoenix Base." Once the formalities of identification were complete, Reynolds led them deeper into the asteroid base. The tunnels opened into a large central chamber that served as both command center and living area for what appeared to be hundreds of military personnel. "How many survived?" Jack asked, looking around at the bustling activity. 8,000 spread across this base and 2 others, Reynolds replied. "The cream of Earth's space forces, along with key scientists and engineers." "And you've been here the whole time?" Lisa asked, unable to hide the accusation in her voice. "While Earth burned?" Reynolds stopped walking, his expression grave. "We had no choice. Protocol Omega was clear. Preserve our most advanced forces until we could strike effectively. Going back would have meant destruction for everyone." "What makes these ships so special?" Mark asked. Instead of answering directly, Reynolds led them to an observation deck overlooking another, larger hangar. Below them sat the most impressive warship Jack had ever seen. Sleek and predatory, it bore little resemblance to the bulky vessels humans had used before the invasion. "The Defiance," Reynolds said with pride, "and her sister ships, built with technology recovered from a crashed alien scout ship 30 years before the invasion. We integrated their tech with our own designs. The Dominion doesn't know what we're capable of." "Then why wait 5 years?" Jack demanded. "We needed time to build more ships, train crews, and we were waiting for something else." Reynolds turned to face them fully. "We've detected other survivors, military elements that managed to escape with prototype vessels during the invasion. We've been gathering them slowly, carefully." Ben, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "How many ships do you have?" 27 capital ships plus support vessels," Reynolds answered. "Not enough to take on the entire Dominion fleet in direct combat, but with the right strategy." "How?" Lisa asked. "Even with advanced technology, they outnumber us hundreds to 1. Reynolds smiled grimly. "Sometimes the smallest blade applied at the right pressure point can bring down a giant. We've been studying them, learning their weaknesses." He led them to the command center where a holographic display showed the solar system, with red markers indicating Dominion positions. Their ships are powerful but predictable. Their tactics rely on overwhelming force and strict command structures. And most importantly, Reynolds pointed to a blinking point on the display. "Their entire fleet is coordinated through relay stations. Take those out, and their communication breaks down." Jack studied the display. 5 years of resistance experience, giving him insight into what Reynolds was planning. "You're not trying to win a conventional war. You're going to use guerrilla tactics in space." "Precisely," Reynolds confirmed. "Hit-and-run attacks, disable their communication, create chaos in their ranks while we gather more strength." Ben joined them at the display, his technical mind already working on the problem. "Their communication system must have redundancies." "It does, but we've developed weapons that specifically target their tech. Weaponized EMP bursts tuned to their frequencies, computer viruses tailored to their systems." For the first time since arriving, Jack felt real hope surge through him. This wasn't just a desperate last stand, it was a genuine fighting chance. A young officer approached Reynolds, saluting sharply. "Admiral, the long-range sensors have detected something. A Dominion scout ship is entering the Kuiper Belt." Reynolds' expression darkened. "They must have tracked your shuttle." "What do we do?" Mark asked. "We move. Now." Reynolds turned to his officers. "Prepare the fleet for immediate departure. Execute scatter protocol." The command center erupted into controlled activity as orders were relayed. "Scatter protocol?" Lisa questioned. We break into smaller groups, head to predetermined rally points throughout the system, Reynolds explained. Standard procedure whenever there's risk of detection. Jack watched the disciplined response of the fleet personnel with approval. These weren't just survivors. They were soldiers ready for war. Commander Turner, Reynolds said, turning back to Jack. The information you brought about the Dominion's plans changes our timeline. We can't wait any longer to begin operations. What do you need from us? Jack asked. Your experience, your knowledge of Dominion ground operations, and your connection to the Resistance. Reynolds's eyes were hard with determination. It's time to take the fight to them. As alarms sounded throughout the base and crews rushed to their ships, Jack felt the weight of the moment. 5 years of hiding, of small victories and painful losses had led to this. The fleet, humanity's last best hope, was about to reveal itself. The ships of war were rising again, just as the ancient proverb warned. Those who thought they had conquered humanity were about to learn why Earth had never been invaded before. We're ready, Jack said simply. In the hangar below, the mighty engines of the Defiance roared to life, echoed by the other vessels of the fleet. The time for hiding was over. The time for war had begun. The Defiance moved silently through the darkness of space, its advanced engines leaving no heat signature for Dominion sensors to detect. On the bridge, Admiral Reynolds stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching as the tactical display showed their fleet's scattered positions across the solar system. First phase complete, announced his executive officer. All ships report successful jumps to their assigned positions. Reynolds nodded. Beside him, Jack Turner studied the display with a soldier's eye, noting how the human ships had positioned themselves near key Dominion outposts and supply lines. You've been planning this for years, Jack observed. Since the day we implemented Protocol Omega, Reynolds confirmed. But your intelligence about their accelerated timeline has forced us to move faster than intended. The plan was daring but sound. The human fleet had split into 5 battle groups, each targeting different Dominion assets throughout the solar system. The goal wasn't to win through direct confrontation, that would be suicide, but to strike at vulnerable points, gather more resources, and most importantly, to inspire hope on Earth. Fleet Group Alpha is approaching Mars Outpost, reported the communications officer. They're ready to begin. Reynolds touched a control panel. All ships commence Operation Wildfire. Across the solar system, humanity's forgotten fleet sprang into action. Near Mars, 3 sleek warships dropped their stealth fields just long enough to launch a barrage of missiles at the Dominion's primary fuel processing facility. Before the Dominion defense systems could fully activate, the ships vanished again, their advanced technology making them ghosts in the darkness. Mars Outpost reports direct hits, announced the tactical officer on the Defiance. Dominion ships are scrambling, but Alpha Group has already jumped to secondary targets. Jack watched in amazement as similar reports came in from the other battle groups. Near Venus, human ships had destroyed a communication relay. In Earth orbit, a daring raid had disabled 2 Dominion cruisers without alerting the main fleet. Weapons are working better than expected, Reynolds said with grim satisfaction. Their shields can't handle our frequency-shifting projectiles. This was the advantage Reynolds had waited 5 years to exploit. The recovered alien technology had allowed human engineers to develop weapons that specifically targeted Dominion weaknesses. Missiles that changed energy signatures mid-flight to bypass shields. Electronic warfare systems that disrupted their neural interfaces. Incoming transmission from Earth, the communications officer announced suddenly. It's on the Resistance frequency. Put it through, Jack said quickly. Lisa's voice filled the bridge, crackling with static but clear enough to understand. Turner, are you seeing this? The Dominion is going crazy. Their ships are breaking formation, heading to defend outposts all over the system. That's the idea, Jack replied. How's the situation on the ground? Better than we could have hoped. Their ground forces are being pulled back to defend key installations. The Resistance is taking advantage. We've liberated 3 work camps already. Jack looked at Reynolds. It's working. The Dominion doesn't know how to handle multiple simultaneous attacks. It won't last, Reynolds cautioned. They'll adapt their tactics soon enough. Then we need to move to the next phase, Jack urged. The ground resistance is ready. Reynolds considered this for a moment, then nodded. Communications. Send the signal to initiate Phase 2. All ships to commence their next assigned targets. As orders went out across the fleet, Jack turned to Ben, who had been working with the ship's technical team to analyze Dominion communication patterns. Have you found it? Jack asked. Ben looked up from his console, excitement visible despite his fatigue. I think so. Their entire command structure relies on a hierarchical neural network. Each ship and base is connected to regional command nodes, which in turn report to their main command vessel. The one they call the hive mind, Reynolds added. Exactly. Ben continued. Take out the regional nodes and their forces in that area lose coordination. Take out the hive mind, and their entire fleet becomes disorganized, Jack finished. But the hive mind will be their most heavily defended asset, which is why we don't attack it directly, Reynolds said. Not yet. Over the next 3 days, humanity's ships struck throughout the solar system in a carefully choreographed dance of hit-and-run attacks. They appeared just long enough to cause maximum damage before disappearing again, leaving confusion and destruction in their wake. On Earth, the Resistance seized the opportunity, striking at weakened Dominion positions and freeing more humans from work camps. For the first time in 5 years, the aliens were on the defensive. On the 4th day, Jack joined Reynolds in the Defiance's war room, where a holographic display showed the current state of the conflict. Dominion forces were scattered, responding to threats across the system with decreasing efficiency. Their communication is breaking down, Ben reported. The regional command nodes are trying to compensate for the destroyed relays, but they're overwhelmed with conflicting data. What about their reinforcements? Mark asked. He had been working with the fleet's intelligence division, analyzing Dominion ship movements. Our long-range sensors show a large force moving from their outer colonies, Reynolds answered. Led by their Supreme Commander Dazalar, they'll reach our system within 2 weeks. A somber mood settled over the room. Despite their successes, everyone knew a direct confrontation with the Dominion's main force would be devastating. Then we need to do something they won't expect, Jack said firmly. Something that will shake their confidence before their reinforcements arrive. Lisa's voice came through the communication system again. Jack, we've got news from Earth. The Dominion is gathering all their remaining ships for a major assault on our freed territories. They're pulling everything they have into orbit. This could be our chance to strike at their ground command centers. Jack looked at Reynolds. If we coordinate with the ground resistance, we could hit them from both sides, space and ground simultaneously. Reynolds studied the tactical display, considering the risks. It would mean splitting our forces at a critical moment. But if it works, Jack pressed, we could cripple their ability to organize a defense before their reinforcements arrive. After a long moment, Reynolds nodded. Very well. We'll implement Operation Thunderstrike ahead of schedule. The next 12 hours were a flurry of preparation as battle plans were refined and transmitted securely to resistance cells on Earth. The Defiance would lead the main fleet in a direct assault on the Dominion's orbital forces, while smaller, strike teams would support ground attacks on key command centers. As the hour approached, Jack found himself on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Lisa and the ground resistance were risking everything on this coordinated attack. If it failed, having doubts? Reynolds asked, joining him at the viewport. No, Jack answered honestly. For the first time in 5 years, I have hope. Real hope. Reynolds smiled slightly. 5 years ago, when we implemented Protocol Omega, many called me a coward for retreating, for hiding while Earth suffered. And now? Now they'll see why we waited, why patience was our most powerful weapon. Reynolds turned to face Jack fully. The Dominion thought they'd broken us, that we were just scattered survivors to be crushed underfoot. They never understood what humanity truly is. And what's that? Jack asked. Adaptable, relentless, and at our most dangerous when all hope seems lost. Reynolds checked his watch. It's time. Let's show them what the ships of humanity can really do. As they returned to the bridge, alarm sirens began to sound. "Admiral," called the sensor officer. "Dominion ships approaching at high speed. Multiple contacts, they've found us." Reynolds remained calm. "It seems our enemy is more resourceful than we anticipated. They've forced our hand." He turned to his crew. "Battle stations, prepare for immediate engagement." The Defiance's engines roared to life as its weapon systems powered up. Around it, the other ships of the fleet moved into formation. "Send the signal to the Resistance," Jack ordered. "Tell them to proceed with the ground assault as planned." As the message went out, the first Dominion warships appeared on their sensors, massive insect-like vessels bristling with weapons. "All ships engage," Reynolds commanded. "Operation Thunderstrike is now in effect." The human fleet surged forward, weapons blazing against the night sky. For the first time since the invasion, humanity wasn't running or hiding. They were taking the fight directly to the enemy. The tide was turning, and the ships of war had risen again. The space around Jupiter's orbit flashed with weapons fire as humanity's fleet engaged the Dominion Armada. The Defiance led the charge, its experimental weapons tearing through alien shields that had never been designed to counter Earth's hybrid technology. From the command center, Admiral Reynolds directed the battle with the calm precision of a seasoned commander. Jack stood nearby, relaying information to the ground forces as it became available. "Multiple hits on the Dominion flagship," reported the tactical officer. "Their defensive grid is at 60%. "Press the advantage," Reynolds ordered. "Battle, Groups 2 and 3, execute flanking maneuver Delta." Human ships moved with unexpected agility, using Jupiter's massive gravitational field to slingshot into attack positions. It was a tactic the Dominion had never encountered, using a gas giant's natural forces as a combat multiplier. "Admiral," Jack said urgently, looking up from his communication console. "The ground assault has begun. Lisa reports resistance cells have infiltrated all 3 primary command centers on Earth." Reynolds nodded. "Then we need to keep their orbital forces occupied. They can't be allowed to provide air support." The space battle had been raging for nearly 6 hours. Though outnumbered, the human fleet was holding its own thanks to superior tactics and their specialized weapons. But everyone on the bridge knew they couldn't maintain this pace forever. "Sir," called out the sensor officer, "Dominion reinforcements detected entering the system. Estimated arrival time, 40 minutes. A tense silence fell over the bridge. If reinforcements reached them before they could complete their mission, all would be lost. "We need to target their communication network now," Jack urged. "Before they can coordinate with the reinforcements." Reynolds studied the tactical display, where a large Dominion vessel hung back from the main battle. "That's their regional hive mind ship. Every Dominion vessel in this sector is linked to it." "Our weapons can breach its shields," Ben said, looking up from his station where he'd been analyzing enemy transmissions. "But we'd have to get close, dangerously close." Reynolds made his decision. "Helm, set course for the hive mind vessel. All other ships continue the attack pattern. Keep them distracted." As the Defiance changed course, breaking away from the main battle, Jack received an urgent transmission from Earth. "Jack, it's Lisa. We've breached the main command center, but we're encountering heavy resistance. The Dominion has deployed some kind of neural disruptors. Our people are dropping left and right." "Hold position," Jack replied, mind racing. "We're about to hit their communication hub. Once it's down, their coordination should collapse." "We don't have time to wait." Lisa's voice was strained. "Their backup systems are coming online. It's now or never." Jack turned to Ben. "Is there any way we can help them? Some kind of counter to these neural disruptors?" Ben thought for a moment, then snapped his fingers. "The same technology we're using to jam their ship communications. If we recalibrate it to the frequency their ground forces use, it might block the neural disruptors too." "Can you do it remotely?" Jack asked. "I need access to their main broadcasting system," Ben replied. "If the Resistance can reach it." Jack relayed the instructions to Lisa, while on the main view screen, the Defiance closed in on the hive mind vessel. Dominion fighters scrambled to intercept them, but the human ship's point defense systems kept them at bay. Range to target, 30 seconds, reported the helm officer. Reynolds turned to his weapons officer. Prepare all forward batteries. Target. Their command node. Fire everything we've got once we're in range. The Defiance shuddered as it absorbed fire from the hive mind's defensive batteries. Warning lights flashed across multiple stations. Shields at 40%, called out the engineering officer. We can't take much more of this. We only need one clean shot, Reynolds said grimly. On Earth, Lisa and her team fought their way through the Dominion Command Center, pushing toward the central broadcasting array. Half her fighters were down, affected by the alien neural weapons that somehow targeted the human nervous system directly. We're almost there, she gasped into her communicator, dragging herself forward despite the pain lancing through her head. Ben, be ready. Back on the Defiance, the ship rocked violently as a direct hit breached one of the lower decks. 20 seconds to firing range, the tactical officer announced. Suddenly, the sensor officer called out in alarm. Multiple Dominion cruisers breaking off to intercept us. They've realized what we're trying to do. Reynolds remained steady. Stay on. Course, all power to forward shields. The Defiance plunged ahead, taking hit after hit as it closed the distance to its target. On the tactical display, the incoming Dominion cruisers were closing fast. Too fast. We're not going to make it, Jack said quietly. Reynolds looked at him, a strange calm in his eyes. Yes, we will. Communications, broadcast on all frequencies. Code phrase, Lazarus Rising. Throughout the battle space, the scattered human fleet received the code. Without hesitation, ship after ship broke off from their current engagements and changed course, placing themselves between the Defiance and the approaching Dominion cruisers. What are they doing? Jack asked, watching as human ships deliberately took fire meant for the Defiance. What soldiers have always done, Reynolds answered, ensuring the mission succeeds, no matter the cost. On Earth, Lisa's team finally reached the broadcasting array. We're in position, she reported, her voice weak but determined. Transmitting the interference pattern now, Ben replied, fingers flying across his console. The Defiance shuddered again as it finally reached optimal firing position. The massive hive mind vessel loomed before them, its organic-looking hull bristling with weapons. Fire all weapons, Reynolds ordered. The human ship unleashed everything it had, missiles, energy weapons, and a special package developed specifically for this moment. A virus designed to infect and corrupt the Dominion's neural network. The hive mind's shields flared and then collapsed under the onslaught. The virus package penetrated its systems, spreading rapidly through the command protocols. On Earth, Lisa watched in amazement as the neural disruptors suddenly failed. Dominion soldiers staggered, clearly disoriented as their connection to the hive mind was severed. It's working, she reported. Their forces are in chaos. Throughout the solar system, Dominion ships began to drift aimlessly or fire at random targets, sometimes even at each other. Without the guiding intelligence of the hive mind, individual commanders were left to make decisions they had never been trained for. All ships press the attack, Reynolds ordered. Target their engines and weapons, disable, don't destroy where possible. Jack looked at him in surprise. You're trying to capture their ships? We'll need them, Reynolds explained. For what comes next? As the battle turned decisively in humanity's favor, Jack received another transmission from Earth. This time it wasn't just Lisa. Reports were coming in from resistance cells worldwide. With the neural network down, humans were rising up everywhere, overwhelming the confused Dominion forces. We're taking back our planet, Lisa said, exhaustion and triumph mingling in her voice. Hours later, as the Defiance orbited Earth for the first time in 5 years, Jack stood with Reynolds on the observation deck looking down at the planet they had fought so hard to save. It's not over, Reynolds said quietly. Their reinforcements will regroup. Their supreme commander will adapt. This was just the first battle in what will be a long war. But it's a battle we won, Jack replied. And more importantly, we've given people hope. Reynolds nodded. Hope is a powerful weapon, perhaps the most powerful we have. Below them, the lights of human cities were coming back on one by one, like stars appearing in the evening sky. Earth was far from healed. Parts of it still lay in ruins, and the scars of 5 years of occupation would take generations to fade. But humanity had proven what Jack had always believed, that they were at their most dangerous when all hope seemed lost. The Dominion thought they had conquered us, Jack said softly. They never understood that humans don't break under pressure. We transform. Reynolds smiled slightly, like carbon into diamond. A young officer approached them, saluting sharply. Admiral, Commander, the Council is gathering. Representatives from all resistance cells and Fleet Command. They're waiting for you to address them. As they walked toward the conference room, Jack thought about all they had endured to reach this moment. The losses, the sacrifices, the years of hiding and fighting, but also the courage, the ingenuity, and the unbreakable spirit that had brought them here. The war was far from over, but humanity had risen again, and this time, they would not fall. Reynolds paused at the entrance to the conference room, looking at Jack. Ready to help plan our next move, Commander? Jack nodded. Always, Admiral. Together, they stepped through the door to face the future. A future where the dangerous ships of humanity would continue to rise until the stars themselves belonged to the children of Earth